A congressional effort to end the prosecution against WikiLeaks' Julian Assange is underway. Representative Rashida Tlaib is sending a letter to her House colleagues that calls on the Department of Justice to drop charges against Julian Assange and end its effort to extradite him from his detention in Belmarsh prison in the UK. The Justice Department has charged Assange, who is the publisher of WikiLeaks, for publishing classified information.
Now that letter, a copy of which was obtained by The Intercept, is in the signature gathering phase and has not yet been sent to Attorney General Merrick Garland. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeted this weekend, "I'm calling for the release of Julian Assange. His charges should be dropped. The United States of America must defend the First Amendment and protect freedom of the press. It's one of the greatest freedoms any nation can have." So here is a situation, the kind of thing we cover here on this show that I think would be baffling to many mainstream people. Here you have a left progressive Democrat, Rashida Tlaib, disliked by Republicans, and you have Marjorie Taylor Greene, arch conservative, Trumpy Republican who mainstream Democrats think is crazy. Both agree, free Julian Assange, which is something that libertarians have been talking about this. Socialists have been talking about this. People who still respect the First Amendment and free speech in mainstream circles, although I think that's a shrinking number, unfortunately. Free Julian Assange. There is here's a good bipartisan issue. It's just not the kind of bipartisanship that elite voices think is good.
Yeah, I mean, you love to see it, right? I mean, you love to see this kind of thing, left and right coming together over something as important as the First Amendment. And honestly, what is more important than the First Amendment? It remains to be seen whether Marjorie Taylor Greene intends to sign on to Rashida Tlaib's letter. I really hope she does, and that this isn't an attempt to sort of steal the thunder and start her own initiative. It's really a moment in which I really hope we're going to see some bipartisan support for this, because this is extremely important. It is a huge violation of the First Amendment that you can even be charged with the Espionage Act. I just don't see how there's any debate around this, and it's disheartening that there does seem to be a debate about this. That President Trump didn't free Julian Assange or cancel the extradition order, and that there is still this effort to penalize him for what was essentially effectively an act of speech. So it's just great to see this effort. Kudos to Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, I don't say that a lot, for starting it, and I hope to see Marjorie Taylor Greene sign on to that letter and bring along with her all of the influence she has in her party, which is non-negligible at this point.
It's always worth remembering, reflecting on what Assange has had his life destroyed over. He was the leader of WikiLeaks. He published information that he obtained through a third party that the U.S. government didn't want you to know about, that exposed them for some hypocrisies and some criminal behavior. And for that, again, that's journalism. That's something the Washington Post does and the New York Times does, and so on and so forth. That's something we do, or it's something journalists should aspire to do more of, to hold the powerful to account by telling you information they did not want you to know. I mean, how many times have I brought up the overclassification problem, where no wonder every political figure has boxes of documents that are technically classified in their parking garage or something, because there's just too much secrecy. Julian Assange tried to shine a light on some of that stuff to make it not secret, the things they really didn't want you to know about. And for that, he was effectively trapped in an embassy in the UK for years. And now he's in, and then eventually they got him. He's been in prison there in the UK. There's been an effort to bring him to the US. His health has deteriorated through all of this situation. We've had people on the show who testify to his exact condition. It is not good. We've had his brother on the show. It's awful. They're slowly killing this man for an act of journalism. The U.S. could end this. They could just say he's not going to be prosecuted. He should be pardoned, commuted, whatever it takes. He should be celebrated, actually, for what he did. And it would be a great move for whoever the president is. Right now, the president is Joe Biden, to go forward and do that. But members of both parties, they talk a good game on free speech, but when it was their government that was embarrassed, they want to drop the hammer.
Right. And in fact, the far-reaching impact of what he published, we're certainly still feeling it now in terms of that switch that the Democratic Party underwent in terms of its perception of Russia, right? From seeing Russia as a potential partner in the fight against China to seeing Russia as the source of all evil, right? And arguably that started, certainly we saw that already, by the time Trump got into office, right? But arguably it started with Julian Assange publishing information that was embarrassing to Democratic elites and for which they have never forgiven him and never forgiven the source of that information. Which just completely eviscerated the Democratic Party's approach to foreign policy and reorganized it and reshaped it around defending the ego and the reputation of, its elites. So I think that the impact has been huge. We're still feeling it now. What you would want to see is both parties fighting over taking credit for commuting, the charges against Julian Assange, right? That's what you would want to see. So, if this is a new effort from Rashida Tlaib and Marjorie Taylor Greene to either come together or fight over who's going to be pushing this is just exactly the kind of thing you want to see from elected officials.
Yeah, well said. And we'll have actually more to say about Marjorie Taylor Greene a little bit. She had some mainstream media coverage of her, a CBS 60 Minutes interview with her, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later on the show. We'll have more Rising right after this.